When you have been a rabbi since the age of the dinosaurs, rites of passage become a kind of commonplace. It's a thrum of reassuring ritual. But I've only attended one other installation. It was my own in Kansas City in the 80s, at my very first pulpit in a place called Prairie Village. It was enough that I had to explain to snotty New Yorkers that I had gone to a place called Prairie Village. But the installation itself was a lovely event. My parents and brother came in from Detroit, and my in-laws flew in from Chicago for the weekend. Because we are the Jews, there was lots of speech making, but it didn't match the profusion of baked goods. I want you to imagine 15 rugelach for every citizen of Kansas. Nordic Ware did a special run of bunt pans with my name inscribed on the crest of each coffee cake. The only problem here was popular culture ignorance. The precise date of my installation was November 21st, 1980. Where were you on that Friday night? I regret that I can tell you exactly. Those of you who were alive at the time sat with 300 million other Americans raptly focused on the broadcast event of the century, waiting to discover who shot JR. Even the people who organized the event gave my golden moment a pass. It goes without saying that there was lots of leftover rugelach, and we had sour cream coffee cake in the freezer for years. When I came to Tulsa, B'nai Emunah forgot to install me, so I remain a faucet still waiting for a plumber. But that's okay with me. Once was enough. But this event is another matter altogether. A dignified congregation and its senior minister have gathered to celebrate a brilliant achievement. My beloved colleague, Reverend Barbara Prose, is about to be installed as a minister of this congregation. Marlon Lavenhar has done exactly the right thing. Against the grain of our many colleagues who conduct themselves with anxious turfishness, a desire to shine against the mediocrity of others, he has welcomed Barbara Prose into partnership to make sure that her brightness is also visible. My friend Marvin Lavenhar always does the right thing. He is never afraid that someone else will succeed. He always chooses for the best and the brightest. And he is always creating moments of meaning. This one asks the most interesting question. The ministry used to be a settled assumption, the way we did things, the order of the universe. You may have noticed that that is no longer the case, not for rabbis, not for priests, not for any of us who stand in the pulpit. I've always felt deeply for my physician friends who have to deal with patients like me amateurs practicing internet medicine who self-diagnose and ask too many questions. Then I realized that what applied to doctors also applied to me and to my colleagues. The version of authority that prevailed for centuries, the idea that we channel something holy and precious, no longer operates in any useful way. Assumed authority is like a public telephone booth, a rare and somehow unsettling sign of a world that has ceased to exist for any of us. That's a different way of saying that if authority exists, if a ministry can be said to have meaning and coherence, it must be built on the strength of daily exertion. It's an earned credential, not a thing bestowed. It begins, I think, with a kind of alertness, a subtle ability to hear the word behind the word, to read the language spoken by the set of a head, the flutter of a hand, the shift of posture in a leg or an arm. The people who come to us, who come to Marlon and Barbara, and any one of us here who are ministers, are almost always carrying a burden of pain. They may speak elusively. They may be indirect or circuitous. In the most difficult circumstances, they may confront and oppose because it is simply too painful to face their terrible unhappiness. In the way that unhappiness works in the world, someone else almost always has to pay for it. A minister is not a psychotherapist. That was a dream of rabbis in New York City from 1946 to the end of the century. We aren't credentialed for it, and we should not practice it. But one of the essential tasks is to listen carefully, honor the pain, and bear dignified witness to the struggles of our congregants. We should readily admit that we struggle too, that if we preach, we are preaching about our problems, not proudly announcing our glib solutions. I want to be able to say that I helped sort things out, that I called quiet attention to what was behind the curtain. Between you and me, I think that All Souls has been greatly fortunate. It has 2 full-time ministers who are betazoid virtuosos and 2 partners in ministry who do exactly the same. But I expect another kind of alertness as well. It's the intuitive sense that all things are connected, that we live in the present and the past simultaneously, that what's happening elsewhere is happening here, or could happen soon, or has already happened. I'm going to call this political alertness, the buzzing awareness that we have to react quickly when our fellow human beings have been harmed or threatened. It's the urgent commitment to remain continually mobilized to act out the demands of the living God. I know that when I wake up on the day following a crisis, the first message in my inbox will be from Barbara Prose. It will call me to justice. It will call me to mercy. It will call me to comfort the injured or the bereaved. It will ask me to affirm my deepest commitments, my understanding of Torah, the ideas that are always rattling around in my head that I keep forgetting to turn into action. And it will be co-signed by Marlon himself. A minister who is worthy of being called a minister will be alert to the whisper of racism or othering and respond before it's elected to high office. Barbara will summon me and Reverend Davis to the jail to say no to wholesale deportation of the undocumented. She will summon us to the sidewalk to sing and to pray. She will know that that's the job of the minister, to be an antenna quivering in the center of the culture, ready to bring the force of religious resistance against the wall of everything that divides and imprisons us. And she will be unafraid to talk about our mission. That what the church is frequently called upon to do often has a political dimension and should not be feared because churches don't do politics. A rabbi I knew in Kansas City, who did not, by the way, come to my installation, never got up in front of his congregation without addressing the issue of nuclear annihilation. He talked about it in sermons. He talked about it at baby namings. When I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. Some of you get a letter from me each day that sometimes rudely addresses a public official who has betrayed the values that this country once stood for. I believe that it's my job to resist injustice, and I think that Barbara believes the same. But she also has the good sense to know, and to know in a way that goes beyond mere acknowledgement, that the church is not simply a political tool or a hammer for justice or a letter to the editor. It serves many purposes, and it must do so radiantly. That's the second thing in the three that I brought you. The synagogue now speaks about power-strip Judaism. That in order to remain a vital center in our community, we have to honor the fact that many people need us, but that they need us to accomplish many different things. The transporting experience of music in the sanctuary, the stewardship of philanthropic resources, education in the sources of Unitarian Universalism, that's you, joy and celebration in Emerson Hall, food and feasting and social aggregation. We have to address intellectual hunger and physical hunger and keep our eyes on the existential crisis of loneliness and distance and the alienated self. The church that has a worthy minister is one with many opportunities for contact. It will include the believers and the skeptics and the humanists and every variety of faith and doubt, including good people on the other side of doubt who come to this place for pure communion and don't want to hear much about God at all. The rabbi I'm willing to call my rabbi has to be polyvocal and multilingual, and help me plug myself into an experience of meaning. Some people call this the big tent church. I like the metaphor of power-strip Judaism and Christianity because it conveys the electric quality of the great church experience. I plug myself in and it trips the switch of my selfhood. And we should never discount the importance of that electricity. Before I get yanked away to make way for the next speaker, this is the third and final thing I lay before you. I once talked to a man, a South American Jew, who said that the quality he looked for in a rabbi was someone who wasn't afraid to be crazy, who wasn't afraid to put his hand through a glass window. I don't think he meant exactly what he said, but it was close enough to stick in my head. He didn't want any part of corporate religion, no decorous, regimented moments of reflection, no constraints on feeling, on experimentation, and on risk. He wanted a rabbi who would throw everything at the wall, leave nothing on the table, and spend his last dollar on one candle. He was excited by the idea that his unhinged rabbi would say unexpected things, would run instead of walk, would speak loudly in places that called for quiet, and go mute at the moment he was expected to speak because no human word could capture the meaning of the moment. He wanted a high-flying rabbi who was drunk on faith and who would expand the realm of possibility for those who followed him. Someone who allowed for the strong possibility that in abnormal times, normal is useless. He would have liked the idea of deep-thinking ministers who came to feel that two churches could be one. He would have liked the idea of ministers who felt that it was time to give up the familiarity of Midtown and risk the rigors of love beyond belief. We are going downtown, whatever it takes to get there. I am down with that South American Jew. When I want to feel corporate, I go to the bank. I ask to open my safety deposit box and congratulate myself on having been moderately responsible. But when I come to the synagogue, I want something else. The restless energy of a moving spirit, the sense of doors and windows opening, that all things are possible, that tomorrow will be different, that my body and soul can reach beyond the boundaries and capture something wild and eternal. I have actually seen Barbara Prose in such a moment. 2 years ago, she turned a rally for immigration into a Unitarian revival at St. Francis Xavier. She spoke in a loud voice. She let her hands fly upward. She broke the iron restraints of the pulpit and pulled a truth down from heaven itself. I really love that way of being, that self-credentialing model of ministry. And it goes back as far as the roots of my tradition. Marlon asked me for a text this morning that could be declaimed as a prelude to what I wanted to say. Thank you, Reverend Pearson, for getting that job done. All I need is to tag your reading. The transfer of the ark from exile to Jerusalem is a hinge in history, a moment of amazement. It's the radical retooling of Israelite religion, and nothing after it has been the same. King David knows this moment will never come again and feels the explosive energy in his soul. No formal procession will serve the purpose. No exhausted cliches can help him climb this mountain. He knows that it's time to go to church, but that he must make it new and make it fresh and communicate the prophetic power of the moment. And so he strips off his robe and dances before the Lord. He dances the Ark of the Covenant to its home. I pray that when the time comes for you, all of you will be able to do the same. That at your 100th birthday, you will dance that way, with both of your ministers in the center circle, reaching out to this gorgeous congregation and all of their colleagues in this professional family. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who will sustain and allow us to reach that season, and who allows us to celebrate with Barbara in this one. And let us all say, Amen, Amen.
Still will you're visiting with us online today. We love connecting with people all across the country and around the world, sharing our powerful message of love beyond belief.
There's something new happening here. You can now join All Souls as a virtual member. Our virtual membership is designed for friends who live outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who want to engage with All Souls in a meaningful way.
You can be part of an expanding family, a global family really, wherever you are. If you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
or Orange County, California,
Canada,
or Cameroon. By becoming a virtual member, you'll be able to deepen your connections with members and friends here in Tulsa and with members wherever you are.
Each week, you'll receive special All Souls content tailored for you, our virtual members. Virtual members have access to pastoral care, to personal prayers, and also receive invitations to exclusive web events.
You can learn more, and if you're ready, you can become a virtual member today by visiting allsoulschurch.org/virtual membership.
We're grateful our ministries are having a positive impact on your life, and we want to share the good news of love beyond belief with more and more people. So no matter what, we need your support to keep this ministry growing and thriving. So please consider making a gift today. You can do so by texting
LOVEBB for Love Beyond Belief to 73256 or simply visit our website. You are a blessing in our lives. May you be blessed
and be a blessing.